Hey guys, it's Steve. As you'll be able to tell, this show was recorded quite a while ago, last January, with Brian and Sam, after they competed in Marathon Weekend and then the Disney Castaway Challenge on the beautiful Disney Dream. And I'm super excited to announce, if you haven't heard them yet, Brian and Sam this past spring started their own podcast and joined the Disney podcast community known as the DCL Duo. You can find all their podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you can listen to podcasts. And they've just had some amazing content coming out. And just a great couple to join the Disney podcasting community with so much insight and just a lot of love for the Disney, all the Disney products out there. So let's jump into this week's episode with Brian and Sam, and we'll talk about the Quarantine Key 5K coming up this Memorial Day weekend afterwards. Enjoy, everybody. Well, hello, and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome to the show tonight our co-host from LA, but he's in New York. How you doing tonight, Chris?
Doing so good. This is one of those interviews that Christy was like, that's way too late. And I was like, don't worry, I'll still be on LA time.
Yeah. Well, if it's past 7 o'clock, it's too late for Christy. So.
Well, right. Christy is probably like, the fireworks at 10?
I've been to bed now for hours by now. So I thought we'd mix things up a little bit. I'd like to welcome back to the show as well, Brian and Sam from Seattle. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
So I thought we'd mix it up a little bit. In my mind, I have this vision that we're like all sitting in the Meridian Lounge ordering drinks and just going to have a conversation just about all different kinds of things Disney. So you guys have been up to the Meridian Lounge before, right?
We love Meridian.
Yes.
It's probably our favorite place, our favorite adult space on the ship.
Okay, well, let's just run with it. What are you guys ordering? What drink are you guys getting tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what drink you can't get at the Meridian Lounge, which is a Colette, because I tried to order one on the Dream, even though we weren't going to Remy, and they refused to serve me one. But I would be getting a dirty martini.
And I would be getting a glass of Prosecco or a glass of champagne.
And Chris?
I would be asking what was the most expensive thing in the sommelier bucket, and then ordering a glass of that, because the sommelier bucket's one of the fun perks of the Meridian Lounge.
That's a good tip that Scott Sanders brought out. Yeah. Why don't you throw that one out there for everybody?
Basically, they have a lot of different bottles of wine on the cruise ship, and sometimes people will order a glass of wine, but they're the only person who ordered it, and so they don't want the wine to go to waste, and so they put these open bottles in the sommelier bucket. You can basically ask them what's in that bucket, and they'll give you a glass at a majorly discounted price because they don't want the wine to go to waste.
Yeah,
so you can get some like very nice, expensive wines.
Yeah, we've gotten expensive champagnes for pretty cheap from that bucket too.
I wonder, do they do that at like Ooh La La, or do they just move it all up to the Meridian Lounge, I guess?
Well, I've only encountered it in the Meridian Lounge, but I feel like Scott Sanders has talked about it being in like multiple places. I feel like it's even sometimes been in like that bar just off the lobby.
It's definitely an Ooh La La, too, because I remember our friend who went on the cruise, he very much like is always asking
what's in the bucket,
and he asked an Ooh La La, and they had some open champagne in there. Yeah.
Definitely ask, because you might be able to get some cheap wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go old school. I'm going with the sidecar tonight. I had one of those. My wife and I went up there, and I had one of those up on the Dream last time around. It was amazing. So just some great drinks up there. Well, you guys just got back. Let's go from drinks to healthy. You guys just got back from just a whirlwind trip, didn't you guys?
We did. It was a kind of a long trip. It started off, we flew to Disney World, did a few days there, did the Disney Marathon Weekend events, then got on the Dream for 5 days, 4 nights, and then went back to Disney World for a couple of more days at the parks.
Well, let's just kick it off with Marathon Weekend. Chris and I were down there the same time, and we were lucky enough to run into you, Brian, down there. Why don't you tell everybody what you ran, and we can talk about your thoughts about the race weekend, because this was your first one, right?
Yes, this was our first Run Disney event ever. So I ran the 10K.
Yeah, and I did a goofy. I did the half and the full.
And what did you think of the 10K? Because we really didn't talk about the 10K. Katie was going to come on. That's Lake's wife, but she wasn't able to make it. What were your thoughts of the 10K, Sam?
So I'd never done, obviously, a Run Disney event, as I said before, but I loved the event. I thought it was great. we only get to go through one park, which was Epcot, and it's really just the World Showcase is the only part of the park that you run through, and you run through some of the back areas. And I would caution, there's a spot just behind Mexico that reeks of garbage that we had to run right past. But other than the back areas not being so nice to look at, it was a really awesome event. It started and ended in the same place as the other race event, so in that parking lot near Epcot. I thought it was really fun. I loved the energy of the people. We had some characters out on the course, not nearly as many characters as you guys had or those of you who ran the half or the full, but it was a really fun event. I did not like waking up that early in the morning. I did enjoy being done with the event before the heat really started, and I loved getting to see sunrise in Epcot and around sort of the boardwalk area, because we also got to run, we were staying at the beach club, and I literally got to run right past our hotel room at the end of the race. So that was pretty cool as well.
And Brian, were you up for that race?
Did Brian stay in bed?
That's what I was going right there.
Yes and no.
I was peeking definitely out the window in my underwear, trying to watch as she ran by, because my son was still asleep. Yeah, those races are brutally early, so I stayed behind in bed and watched our son.
And to be fair, I did not go to cheer him on at the half marathon, either along the race course or at the finish line, because that was also still relatively early, and with our 6-year-old, we didn't want to kind of wake him up that early to get going to, watch a race. But for the full, Nathan and I did hop on the bus and head over to the finish line, and so we got to cheer Brian on at the finish line and meet him in the reunion area after that race.
We didn't really talk about this at all, Chris, but they put out the tracking, and what's kind of funny is my wife and I used Life 360, which is just an app. I don't know if you guys use that or not, but so I could follow her along with Life 360 pretty good. But were you able to follow Brian along pretty good to find out when he was going to finish, Sam?
It shows me as missing. Like, I think I hit the 5K mat, and I didn't hit any mats after that until the finish. And so I'm like waiting for the that website the cheat website to contact me. But since I ran like the slowest marathon time ever that I've ever posted, I don't think I'm in any danger. But
yeah, and because of that, I only knew where he was at the 5K point. I didn't know where he was later on through the Run Disney tracking. However, I use Find My for the iPhone. And so I can track him. I can track his watch or his iPhone, both of which he had on him. That's how I tracked him. But then I had to look at the course, map to figure out like what that meant.
In all honesty, my bib was I think my timing chip just got damaged. So yeah.
You basically had to make sure that he wasn't in like a medical tent right after the 5K mark somewhere.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Actually, it wasn't the 5K mark. It was the 5. Might have been 5 miles. Yeah.
Well, I was also sending her pictures of every character. Like I would stop for the character photos, and I was sending her those pictures via text, so she knew I was making progress.
I knew he wasn't flying, so that was good.
Well, that's good.
And what Brian was talking about is Marathon Investigations. There was a guy that claimed to come in 4th, and they found out that it's a website you can go to. They kind of try and find people that cheat in all these different races around the country. But there was a guy that claimed he finished 4th in the Walt Disney Marathon this past 2 weekends ago. They were able to prove that he was cheating. So yeah, I don't think you're gonna find your picture up there at all.
Well, Brian didn't finish 4th. So.
Well, either did he, but he was claiming it. So
no, I did. It was 4th to last.
Hey, before we talk about your side of the race, did you sign Nathan up for any of the Kids Run Disney stuff by any chance?
We didn't, because we didn't know what the transportation situation would be to ESPN Wide World of Sports or whatever it's called. We knew it wasn't like close to anything else, really.
Yeah.
And so we knew we were going to go to the expo to pick up our bibs and shirts and all that, all the pre-ordered stuff, and kind of walk around the expo. But we didn't want to have to schlep over there just for him to run like 100 yards or something. So we didn't. I don't know anything about I would love to hear from somebody whose kids did, or younger kids who did those events, because I would be would definitely consider it in the future, but we didn't do it this year.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of work, and I think I think it runs during the half marathon on Saturday too. So if you're taking part in that or doing Goofy or Dopey or something like that, it kind of breaks into that as well. So, well, what did you think, Brian, of the half marathon and the marathon? I know it was kind of a brutal weekend weather-wise for everybody, but what did you think of the course and just the event itself?
Weather aside, and I came into the race weekend not looking to like post a PR or anything anyway. I was coming off of a marathon in October, and I'd gotten sick during the training, so I wasn't sort of feeling like peak training. I just came to kind of finish the events and have fun and do the character stops and all that stuff. So, I mean, I thought of races that I've run, and I've run some fairly marquee races on the West Coast. I thought it was really well supported run. It was impressive. I think Disney added a ton of water stops to support the runners on the half and the full marathon. So I thought it was well organized, well supported. I've heard people who've done prior run Disney events kind of complaining a little bit this year, but I mean, for the money that you pay to run that race, it's as well supported, if not better supported, than some of the marquee races that I've run in. I thought the organization of the race was really good. The picking up the bibs, the expo,
it just all took a long time.
It took a long time, but it moved quickly. I mean, I've been at races where you've got to stand in line forever to get your bib, and this one, it was really kind of walk in, get it, walk out, walk up to get your T-shirt, walk out. I mean, you had to wade through the expo, but you have to do that at every race.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't like is that picking up everything was in each thing you had to pick up was in a different spot. Like in a different building.
Yeah, but that's pretty typical for races in my experience. Like maybe not in a different building, but usually in different rooms or in separate areas. Like, so I thought it was, for the number of people involved in the event, I thought they did a really good job managing the crowd. I thought the Run Disney merchandise that they sold was some of the best race merchandise I've seen. I thought the finish line area was great. I thought the course was a lot of fun, especially for the full marathon. That was kind of one of the selling points for me to run that marathon, was being able to run through all the parks. I mean, it had its moments, but I haven't run a race course that's 100% perfect. So, I know that they cut out the ESPN Wide World of Sports running aspect of it this year, and people were pretty excited about that. I'll say I wasn't super excited by running around the parking lot at Blizzard Beach. But, there were several people who didn't get to experience that fun because they cut it off the course at the end. So, but all in all, I mean, I'll say I left that weekend hooked. I'm already eyeing next year's run weekend, and I had such a blast. I signed up to do Wine and Dine this year. So I think those are fun events. They're really well done. The best part of it for me was, at most races, they hang the medal around your neck, and you get to wear it for about the 10 minutes between the finish line and your car, and to be able to cart that thing through the parks and have people wishing you well. That was great. And the other great thing was just the crowds. There were lots of people cheering on the course, which I've run some races where you hit pieces of that, but this time around there were just lots of people out cheering through the Magic Kingdom, through Hollywood Studios, along the course routes. That motivation is great.
In the boardwalk area, there were a lot of people out there at the boardwalk area.
Yeah, so I loved it. I love the race. I'll definitely be back to do another Run Disney event.
Meanwhile, I had breakfast in Cinderella's table on the day of half marathon.
Could you see the runners going through from there, or was that later in the day?
No, it was a little bit. Well, I don't know that they ran by that area. I did see the runners the next day when I went to breakfast at, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it's the restaurant at the boardwalk it's a character breakfast.
Cape May?
No, at the Boardwalk Hotel, not
Boardwalk.
at Beach Club. Yeah, so I took Nathan for a character breakfast on marathon day at the Trattoria something or other. That's what it is. I can't remember. We saw tons of racers because they ran right by the boardwalk.
I think it's Trattoria Al Forno, right?
Yes, that's it. Trattoria Al Forno. It's a character meal with Ariel and Prince Eric and Rapunzel and Flynn Rider, aka Eugene.
And Chris, did you have any more thoughts about the marathon after it's been a couple of weeks, running that half marathon and whatnot?
No, I mean, I'm into it. Steve knows what I did. I recklessly signed up for the Brooklyn half marathon because it was we were in a text thread and someone was like, hey, the Brooklyn Half Marathon is going to sell out right away unless you log in and get it right when it opens. And I literally hadn't even been thinking about booking the Brooklyn Half Marathon until I didn't know it was a race that people did. And then next thing I knew, I was booked on that. So I think Run Disney did a thing where it's like, I'm hooked on the Run Disney product because it's a Disney product. You know, I can't resist the siren song of Mickey. But I think Run Disney got me into running in general. Like I now have 2 half marathons booked before the summer even starts. I'm excited to do San Diego. I'm excited to do the Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Half Marathon ends at Coney Island, which is pretty iconic, I feel.
So you can get a hot dog at Nathan's.
I can get a hot dog at Nathan's. And this is like a total sidebar, but I'm a bit of a like roller coaster theme park ride nerd. And Coney Island's adding 2 new rides this year, a log ride and a new roller coaster, and they'll be open during that race weekend. So I'm like pretty excited about it. But yeah, Seth and I are committed. I want to do the marathon next year, and Seth wants to do the 10K, which is exciting. He's hoping that the medal is still Oswald because he loves Oswald. I'm hoping that they more prominently feature Minnie Mouse.
Yeah.
Well, you would love the Castaway Key Challenge then, Chris, because it's Minnie Mouse's race.
It's her race, yeah. So at the 10K, at the start and finish line, you know, where they had the character kind of meets and you could take pictures, Oswald was there for the 10K because it was his race. I unfortunately did not get a picture with Oswald because I took a picture with Minnie before the race. And then after the race, I lined up and took a picture with Mickey. And the line for Oswald was like an hour and a half long. And I just was not willing to wait that long for a picture with Oswald.
Yeah, it always happens that way. The line for Donald after the half was like 90 minutes. And the line for Mickey was like 5 minutes. And I was like, if it's the character that is sponsoring your race. Also, I will say, because we didn't submit a time, we were in Corral H. I started to get like annoyed with Donald every time he would be like, ready, get set. I can't even do a Donald voice, but his Donald voice being like, ready, get set, go. And then the fireworks would go up. I was like, Donald, if you don't let me start running really soon, I'm getting overwhelmed. Also, this is a total sidebar, but have you ever noticed that Daisy Duck is the only one who the voice actor sounds like a 40-year-old woman? And like all the other characters have these like, you know, Mickey's like the falsetto voice and Donald's like the angry voice. And then Daisy Duck is over there like straight up being like a 40-year-old woman who I can just like picture with a glass of wine in the Meridian. Anyway, those are the thoughts that I have solidified after running the half marathon.
That was going through your mind while you're sitting in the corral, huh?
Literally in the corral, being like, "Why did Daisy ever date Donald? She could have had anybody."
You wait for a long time. I was in, I think, D, or no, I was not in D. I was in, I don't remember. I was not in one of the first corrals, and so I waited. I waited probably 35 minutes from the time the race actually started until I got to start.
Right, and for me it was like 50 minutes. Meanwhile, Steve like walked up and just started running.
Well, I signed up for the Run Disney Club, so I got bumped up a couple different corrals. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah, no,
that's so controversial,
Steve. We're not going to touch that. Well,
I've got the calendar marked actually because I'm eyeing that. If I'm going to run these races, I'm eyeing that club. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I totally get it. I also feel like for those lower tiers, the Run Disney Club is basically you buying a jacket. Like, there's no benefit except that you get a jacket. It's only that upper tier where it's like higher placement in the corrals and all of that, which is so controversial and people are so have feelings. But
I am super interested. I'm running the Chicago Marathon in October, and I'm super interested because that will be the most marquee race I've run since I've started running, and I'm super interested to compare that race to one of the Run Disney events to see how it compares because they're about equivalent cost wise, and Chicago will have more people at it. I'm interested to see how they compare.
Right, a lot more people, and it's mostly a flat course, I hear, so it's actually a pretty good marathon to run.
Yeah.
And to be fair, for the controversy around the Run Disney Club thing too, is a lot of the other races have the same thing. If you join, there are certain running clubs that sponsor those different races. So if you join their club, it gives you kind of an in to get in those races, or you get a better chance to get into those races too. So I think Disney's just sort of kind of jumping on that bandwagon, but.
Yeah, I paid for the Vancouver Marathon. I paid a fee for like a they called the Prestige Club or something. The year that it was my first marathon. And they had you got like special treatment at the start line. You could go in any corral you wanted. So it's not. Yeah.
And people are kind of piling on Run Disney a little bit, but they got that from other places too. So, well, we're kind of eyeing that Wine and Dine. We're not going to do it this year. We'd love to do that one too, Brian. But we will definitely be back for them. My wife and I are going to do the marathon. So I guess Chris and I and hopefully you guys will be back as well, Brian and Sam.
Yeah, I don't know that Sam will be there in January, but we'll see. And she really wants to do Princess Weekend sometime.
Yeah.
She wants to do the half marathon.
I want to do Princess or Wine and Dine.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of move on from there. Let's keep the running theme going. You guys, after the marathon weekend, you guys headed over to Port Canaveral, jumped on the beautiful Disney Dream, and did the 4-night cruise to run the Castaway Cay Challenge too.
Well, to be fair, I limped onto the ship. I did not jump on after running the movie, but yes.
Well, let's kind of turn our thoughts to there. You guys have cruised out of Port Canaveral several times, but this is your first time on the Dream. What were your thoughts getting on the Dream this time for the first time?
It's very similar to the Fantasy. There's not the layout of the adult areas is different. I did love the peacock chandelier in the main atrium, which is different because the sort of the style of the Fantasy and the Dream are different decorating styles. So that was nice to look at. And we really liked the theming of Vanellope's, the ice cream shop, as compared to Sweet on You on the Fantasy. Sweet on You is very cute, but it doesn't really fit with sort of the ice cream candy aspect of the store. Versus Vanellope's fits perfectly, and the theming was really, really well done. So that's sort of one of the distinctions I would say between the Dream and the Fantasy. And then the only other major distinction I would make is that it's just too short of a cruise.
I was going to ask you that because this is the first time you guys have been on a shorter than a 7-night cruise. Am I right?
We did a 5-night out of San Diego one time, which we got off going, God, that was short. So we should have been 4 would have been too short. I mean, it was amazing to me. Like I got on the 4-night cruise and everyone's decorating their doors and everything, and we did too, and we did fish extender and all this stuff. But it was like, God, did we drag all this stuff on really just for 4 nights? And so it was.
And you had to do all the fish extender stuff day 2 because then you were at port the next 2 days. So it was just It was actually for us. It was super comical as we moved from place to place because we show up to Disney World with
So we had 3 suitcases, and we had packed a smaller suitcase and a larger suitcase so that we'd have an extra one to take stuff back with us. And, as we get on the cruise, it must have looked like we were planning for a 2-week Panama Canal cruise or something as we boarded the ship.
So much
and then we came back from the cruise to the Riviera. We're rolling up with 6 suitcases or something for 2 nights. And I was like, this is just hilarious. But
one suitcase was just fish extender stuff, and we needed our race stuff and we needed our regular clothes. And
I'll say it was a short cruise. The other thing is, I don't think I would ever. I have no interest in going back to Nassau, and certainly if I was on a cruise that stopped at Nassau, I just wouldn't even get off the boat.
I didn't get off the boat.
Again, I got off the boat because I wanted to see the straw market and was just super disappointed with that port and the market, and the people in the port were super aggressive and rude. It felt like it was sort of beneath the Disney standard to stop there. And I know why they have to, because they're all flagged out of there and they've got to drive so much business through that port.
And because people love Atlantis and that other one that's called Blue Lagoon or something like that. There people do like Nassau for those excursions, but we did not do any of the excursions on Nassau. Yeah. And so myself and Nathan did not get off the ship. Brian just got off the ship just to walk around the straw market.
Yeah. And to mail the obligatory postcard because we
like to mail ourselves a postcard from every port that we stop in.
Yeah, Nassau's trying to fix that. I think they know their reputation, and there's a sort of thing that happens where people do a one and done and then use it as a like ship day.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's just like there's not a lot of economy there if it weren't for tourism, and so they really want to get more tourists to go there. So I know there's talks of like reinvigorating the port area and making it so you can't have people sort of like hard selling the way that they do sometimes, and maybe like give it probably 5 years of development, but maybe then it would be worth going back on shore and seeing what they've done to sort of like improve the port and make it a little bit of a stronger destination.
Yeah. I mean, we'd give it a chance, but it would have to be on a 7-night cruise.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest thing about Disney, right? Is that the ship itself is the destination in so many ways. So you're like, I want to see the world, but also I want to see the ship and sort of like do what I can there. And like recently they had to make a bunch of the sailings on the Fantasy Sea Days because they just like couldn't dock anywhere. There were really rough seas. And I secretly would be kind of excited, I think. Like, not if I missed every single port, but if it was like, oh, you get an extra sea day, I would be like, all right, I can handle an extra sea day.
Yeah, I don't want to miss Castaway Cay, but other than that, I'm happy to have an extra sea day.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a short trip. The adult, I will say this. So the adult area on the ship, we didn't get to spend a lot of time in, but I was super intrigued by it because in some ways it looked better than the adult area on the Fantasy. I really liked the bar 687. That just looked like a cool space to be in. And I was super interested in, they still had the outdoor area on the Dream in the adult area. There was like an outdoor kind of patio area. Our friend told us that was the area that they reclaimed on the Fantasy to enlarge Skyline, which I can understand because Skyline was super small in the Dream. So I don't know. I guess the Dream is going to be going into dry dock here in the next year. And so I don't know if they'll just kind of make it over to be closer and in line with the Fantasy, but I kind of hope they keep some of those kind of different spaces between the ships, because that would be an interesting area to explore. So
yeah, my wife and I went out to that little outdoor area. We found it just on a whim, I guess. Went out the door and we hung out there. It was kind of cool. Just had a drink one night, so kind of a different space to go to. There was one of the the 687 is kind of cool too, because it's all about, it's 687, right? Not 686. Am I totally drawn a blank?
No, you're right. 687. It was, and it's the
whole number.
The whole number.
Yeah. Anyways, I went there for a trivia, I think, when we were on the Dream, and it was just kind of cool to look around there because it's got all of the, prints and some of the blueprints and stuff like that from building the Dream. So it's a really cool space.
They also have replicas of the gold coins that are sort of like welded to the hull of the ship or like down somewhere inside of the ship, which is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that's that thing for luck or whatever, right?
Yeah. And they have, I think also ships make extra of them, right? And give them to like significant people in the company. But in this case, they left some up in the, and also apparently it's bad luck though to have them on the ship if they're not hidden inside of the ship. So they're actually replicas, not the actual gold coins that are used. Interesting stuff like that.
Yeah, that's when they do the keel laying. They put the keel down on top of those, and they kind of embed themselves up into the keel, I guess.
The one interesting thing, I forget who we were talking to on the ship, but we got like some inside, I don't know, mildly inside knowledge, maybe it's not inside knowledge, about the new ships that were coming out from one of the cast that were on board. They were saying, they're talking about the rotation that's coming up for the ships, or the rotation that they're preparing for, and they were saying that, the stuff we've been hearing about, the sort of the Fantasy was going to start to take over for the Dream was going to kind of swap out with the Fantasy, but they then mentioned that the Magic or the Wonder they were going to send to Asia going forward, which I had not heard that before. I'd heard speculation about it, but seemed pretty sort of like, yeah, they're going to send the Magic or the Wonder to Asia. That's kind of interesting.
I think it's inevitable at some point. I'll just be kind of curious. So this is a total side note, when they brought the Joy back, I mean, they built the Joy especially for the Asian market. So it had, instead of restaurants, it had a lot of shopping and things like that. It'll be kind of interesting to see who sails on it. So if it's a bunch of Americans going over there and Australians or whatever, they can keep it the same way. But I don't see them like changing the ship around. Does that make sense what I'm saying? To cater just to that customer per se, but
to a specific market. And like with the Joy, there were like 3 different tea rooms and all of that stuff. When they realized that and that's Joy is a Norwegian ship. When they realized at Norwegian that it wasn't selling well, they then just switched things up and brought the Joy to Alaska and sort of like redesigned the interior spaces to cater more towards Americans. But I think that the rumor that you're mentioning could hold water because I think it's pretty risky right now to put a ship out in the Asian market. And Disney wouldn't want to put the larger ships out there right now, probably. They would want to put something with a little bit less capacity, test the waters, see if there's interest. And if there were, then they could even, I guess in some worlds, send one of the new ones out there or send the Dream or the Fantasy. But like, it does make sense to sort of test the waters and see if there's interest, especially because no one is arguing that the Asian market for theme parks right now is like, maybe the most competitive and best in the world, like Tokyo Disney Sea and Shanghai Disneyland, and even all of the like updates they're trying to do to Hong Kong. Disney definitely has a foothold there, so I could see them doing well.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of turn to part of the reason you guys were there to run the Castaway Key Challenge. That's on Castaway Key. Why don't you talk about that day, guys?
Sure. So the Castaway Key 5K, the challenge race, is a different race than the normal Castaway Key 5K. That's, I think, something that people should know. So what they do, and according to people in the Facebook group we were in, this is kind of how they do it every year. Those of us who ran in any of the Disney Marathon weekend events could sign up ahead of time and pay a fee to do the Castaway Key 5K challenge, which you actually get a real medal for. Plus, you also get the rubber Castaway Key regular 5K medal, which they just actually recently changed. So it's a new one for people who've done it before. We had to wake up early, and we had to meet in the Walt Disney Theater at 5:45 a.m. We got to go off the ship early, so they had not let anybody else off the ship. But
And sorry, one thing that's interesting just to back up is they dock the ship at Castaway Key at midnight the night before.
Yes, so we were there much earlier than you normally are at Castaway Key. All those of us who were running the challenge race and anyone who wanted to be a spectator, so any of your family members that wanted to come watch, we all had to get off the ship at about 6:15 in the morning. They opened up the kids clubs for people who had children who needed to be checked in at 5:30. So we dropped Nathan off at about 5:30 in the morning there. You had to reserve your spot in the kids club, though, ahead of time. So unlike the normal kids club where you can just come and go as you please, you had to let them know ahead of time and by a certain day that your kid was going to be there. And they told you had to pick up your kid by 9 a.m. because they move all of the operations of the kids club onto the island at that point. So anyway, we get off the ship. It's completely dark. So it's a very different view of the island and actually a really cool view of the ship as you're walking down, towards the starting line. The starting line is on the airstrip, so it's different than the normal Castaway Key 5K where the starting line is like near, I think, the First Family Beach area. So you're walking much further down. They have sort of a stage at the starting line with the, what do they call that? The cruise director and some of the other, entertainment staff and Minnie Mouse. And she's dressed as Captain Minnie because it's her race. We get started I think they did it in 3 waves, basically 3 corrals. We were in the second corral, but we decided to walk, so we ended up sort of towards the back. We ran the course was to Serenity Bay, all the way out Serenity Bay, past all the cabanas. It was an out and back. And then on the way back, you went through the bicycle loop once, and then you hit the finish line. So the regular Castaway Key 5K, you do that loop twice, and it doesn't go all the way down to Serenity or all the way down past the cabanas at Serenity Bay. It just goes to the edge of Serenity Bay. So it was a different course. There were some characters on the course. We saw Timon, Captain Jack Sparrow, Stitch. They had one other stop where you could just take a picture in one of those frames And if you wanted, there were some props you could use with one of the frame. I'm trying to think if there were any other. I think that was it for characters. What else, Brian?
That about sums up the race. I thought it was really. It was interesting that there was lots of staff on board the ship to answer questions. They had a help desk specifically set up just for the Run Disney event. And it felt like they had sort of taken a Run Disney event from the parks, minus sort of the fireworks, and, put it on the island. So it wasn't the laid back and relaxed kind of Castaway Cay 5K that they normally run. It felt much more like a kind of Run Disney event. There were corrals. They had the starting line announcer. They had people taking photos.
They had music at the start and finish. They didn't have music along.
And at the end, they were serving Moe Ice. You could purchase Moe Ice at the end, and they had the standard Disney food box at the end with the pump cheese and the nachos and all that sort of stuff. So it just felt like a continuation of the weekend, and it was a lot of fun. And they had a special meet and greet with Minnie back on the ship that was open to everyone. They just didn't advertise it.
Yeah, it wasn't in the app and it wasn't in the paper navigator. But Minnie was dressed as Captain Minnie, so that was that was, I think, the big deal about it, because she only dresses as Captain Minnie a few times on the cruise. And so there's, if you want an opportunity for a picture with her as Captain Minnie with your medals and whatnot, that was the opportunity. Brian didn't get to stick around for that because what did you have? You had something that you were trying to
I finally got to do parasailing.
Oh, yeah. He had parasailing at Castaway Cay. So he didn't get to stick. The line for Minnie was so long, he didn't get to stick around and wait to get a picture. But I did. And then we did get a picture with Minnie later, but she was in her regular cruise wear, not her Captain Minnie uniform. It was a well-run event. They had some really actually funny signs on the bicycle loop. They had all these signs that were like, run like it's almost midnight, or run like I don't know. It was just all kinds of Disney themed signs, and it was all run like something. And they were really, really cute. And so as we're on that sort of last mile, it was, fun to read through those. It's an untimed race also. So similar to the regular 5K, it's an untimed race, so it's just really a fun run. And we really took it as a fun run since Brian had run the half and the full. He was not up for a real run at that point.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed your legs were continuing to go after those two. And then being on the ship, I guess, sitting around for a couple days too, Brian.
Yeah.
I love that picture of the two of you in the kind of dusk, I guess, that you had with the ship. I think I saw that on Twitter or something like that. That was a great picture.
Yeah, that one's great. And the other one is the Minnie photobomb. It's both the cruise director and Minnie. It's at the starting line. We have this great selfie we took, and we purposely had Minnie and the cruise director behind us, but then they posed for the picture, so it was even better.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, it was a great shot. It was a very fun event. It was better than the regular 5K because there were characters, of course. But I also think it's better than the regular 5K because you got to do it earlier, and so it didn't sort of impact the rest of your day at Castaway Cay. You still got really your full, we got back on the ship to shower and get Nathan and eat something, and then we, were able to get right off to enjoy Castaway Cay. The one thing that I would say, the spectators that came off could only be at the start-finish line. They could not be along the course because they had not yet opened the island for everybody.
Okay, so my question is, I have three questions. First question is, how many people did this?
Oh, I think they said on the ship, I want to say it was...
Isn't it 700?
Yeah, I was going to say 700. I think it was 700 people.
Wow.
700 plus, but it was 700 something people.
Yeah.
And think about, okay, so 700 people, but that's not that's a lot of cabins, because it's not probably everyone in every cabin ran.
Correct.
It's probably maybe one or two people from each cabin ran. So that's a lot of cabins, which means this is partially a sales tool for them. And they're able to market this cruise, because literally everything you just described, I'm cool. So I guess I'm going to go on this cruise next year. Because just the idea of docking at midnight and then getting off the ship when it's dark, all of that just sounds super cool. And I want to do that. Also, Captain Minnie as many of our listeners know, is my like favorite of all of the minis. And
I told
the
her
fact that this is her race, I'm obsessed.
I told her she needs to get promoted to Commodore now though. You know,
Yes.
Tom is Commodore, and so, you know, she's got to break all the glass ceilings.
Minnie does all the work. We all know she does all the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one thing. My second question would be, did you feel like it wore you out or made because you had to get up so early? Like, did it still feel like vacation, or were you kind of just like, this is like a task to do on my vacation and not as fun?
Well, so because we had Nathan with us, we go to bed fairly early when we're on the cruises anyway, and we're up about that time. So like,
We're not up that early.
Well, I'm not on the cruise, but like at home, Nathan goes to bed at like 8, and I'm up at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning many days.
Yeah, to deal with our puppies.
It didn't feel like we weren't on vacation, but it did sort of feel more like it was a normal day as opposed to being able to like sleep in when we're on the ship. I did not wreck the day though, because the rest of the day it was just sort of like we were lounging by the ocean and having a drink, and you know, I did parasailing. We had lunch. We don't typically stay on the island the whole day either.
Yeah.
Like we usually have lunch, and maybe around 1 or 2, we kind of make our way back.
It gets too hot for us, to be perfectly fair. Our Seattle skin can't handle that much sun.
But on this cruise, I will say the nice thing was we finally, I think, Steve, I think it's your dream, right, to have like the day at sea before you have to get off the ship. And
yes.
And it was amazing.
It was awesome.
It was so nice to be getting back on the ship after Castaway Cay and not being like, okay, let's go back to the room and start packing everything. So
I want to answer Chris's question too, though, and say, so I didn't love getting up that early on the cruise, because we normally don't get up that early on the cruise, because we had to be at the theater at 5:45, right, and dropping off Nathan at 5:30, right, which means we were up at 5, which is still later than we had to be up for any of the race weekend.
I was gonna say, once you've woken up at 2:30 in the morning to run a Disney race, like getting up at 5 is like, oh god, this is fantastic.
But so I didn't love waking up that early, and I didn't love having to, you know, do the whole thing of schlepping and waiting in the theater until they got you on the island. But as soon as we got off the ship, and you get to see, you know, the island in the dark, and then you get to see sunrise coming up right at the start of the race, or right before the start of the race, because the race started about 7, it made it all worth it. So I totally forgot about the fact that I like was up, you know, way too early in the morning while on vacation. And, you know, the race was over and done with, you know, before 8 o'clock in the morning for us. I mean, and they didn't have balloon ladies, but they did have a guy in a golf cart at the end of the back of the race. Yeah.
Well, my last question is more of like a selfish question, because I'm going to be at Castaway Cay in a couple weeks. Was the water swimmable temperature?
It was a little chilly when you know how sort of when you get in a pool and at first it feels really cold, but then once you get under the water, it feels really nice. It was like that.
Yeah, we also had the guy at the dock when I did parasailing said that we had some of the best weather they had in like weeks.
In a while, yeah.
Yeah. That day, and it was nice and warm out, so the cool water wasn't bad. It was not like super windy, so like it was a good weather day at Castaway Cay. It was really good.
One thing, our son did get some sea lice bites, or whatever they call that. So we always use that Sea Safe lotion when we go to Castaway Cay, because we know that the sea lice are kind of a problem, which are really, for people who don't know, they're actually a kind of jellyfish larva. And so I had put it on him, but I didn't put it on him under where his swim trunks were. And so he got some bites right sort of under the edge of his swim trunks. So just a warning to people, just because you put sunscreen on the areas that are, you know, actually exposed to the sun, if you're using Sea Safe, you're not really protecting the rest of your body from the sea lice that do exist at Castaway Cay. It was only bothering him for about a day, and then it went away, though. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's good advice. I feel like if you would go on any cruise Facebook group or something like that, you'll always see people panicking about the sea lice. And it's hard because it's like they're sometimes there and they're sometimes not.
Yeah.
And there's not like, we've been on cruises where like it affected a bunch of people, and we've been on cruises where it didn't affect anybody.
We've never had it affect us, and we've been to Castaway Cay now, 4 times before this? Yeah.
Yeah, and like SeaSafe does say that like you're more likely to get stung like if the jellyfish larva gets stuck between like your clothing and your skin, or like your bathing suit and your skin. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that that's where he got stung, which bummer that happened, but nice that it only lasted a day, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn to the parasailing real quick too, Brian. I'm glad you had a chance to do that. Were you smart and brought your camera with when you get up to take some pictures? Or I left mine on the boat and I'm kicking myself for it.
So I had my GoPro with me.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I got some great photos, and it was some great footage. It was so much fun. I'm so glad I finally got to do it.
It's been canceled every other time.
Just like every shore excursion that involves water at Castaway Cay, it seems like 90% of the time they get canceled because of the wind and the seas. But yeah, no, it was just a great day. And you get on a boat with like 6 people. I think it was like 6 or 7 people were on my boat. I actually got to go up solo because I was the last person to go and the only person who hadn't been. So I got to go up by myself. They were sending other people up in pairs. Pro tip, if you go with a group of 3 people, one person may get to go twice. So if you can finagle your way into a group of 3, you might get a double ride. And it was amazing. Like, they let you out, you got way up into the air, and just great views of the ship and the island. And it was super quiet once you were up there. Like, it felt like you couldn't hear anything. And then, they reel you out, then they kind of almost immediately start to reel you back in, but it's kind of a slow out and a slow in. And it was a lot of fun. There was a woman on the boat who was like super scared of heights, and she went up with her friend and came back down and was like, that was awesome, like smiling ear to ear. And they were like, do you want to go again? She's like, oh, heck yes. And so she was, we got to go again. So it's really fun. I would definitely, I probably won't do it like the next time I go to Castaway Cay, but I would do it again. Well, maybe I'll do a sign up for it knowing it'll get canceled like 5 times out of 10. So anyway.
And then you guys kind of wanted to touch on Beauty and the Beast too. Why don't we touch on that before we get back to Disney World?
Yes. So I have now on the ships seen some of the variety shows that they do, like the Golden Mickeys and Believe and Wish, or Wishes, I think it's called. And I've seen Aladdin and I've seen Frozen on the 2 of the other ships, so on the Fantasy and the Wonder. And this was the first time on the Dream, so this is the first time we got the opportunity to see Beauty and the Beast. And I went to see it solo. It was phenomenal. Like, it was as good, and I would not say this of any of the other shows, although I found Aladdin very enjoyable and Frozen very enjoyable. But Beauty and the Beast was the quality of a Broadway production, but on a ship. And I was floored. It was just incredible. And I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, seeing a lot of Broadway shows. I currently am a subscriber to the Broadway shows at the Paramount Theater here in Seattle. So I see a lot of national tour productions. Beauty and the Beast was on par with those productions. And so I just had to say that because it was so good.
That's so exciting to hear, because I love theater and I love the entertainment aspect of Disney Cruise Line. And I, too, have not sailed the Dream since Beauty and the Beast was launched on the ship. So that's exciting. Also, if you think about it, Beauty and the Beast might be the closest like hint we have at the like caliber and quality of shows on the new ship, because even though Frozen just opened on the Fantasy, it really is more like a transplant of the Frozen that's on the Wonder.
Yes, and it was a wonderful show.
Yeah. I'm super excited to see Frozen on the Wonder, but also because I live so close to Disneyland, we can see Frozen at California Adventure all the time. And I'm assuming probably pretty similar to what's over at California Adventure. And so my thought is like Beauty and the Beast is probably such a good clue as to like the quality and level of what might be coming on the next 3 ships that I'm just really excited.
Yeah, I hope so, because I think that probably the 2 best that I've seen are, I would say, Beauty and the Beast number 1, Frozen number 2. I think the puppetry aspect in both shows is really really amazing. I think Aladdin was good, but we've seen Aladdin both before and after the revamp, and it's good, but honestly, it's not Broadway quality.
So, Sam, not being a theater guy myself, like you guys, you and Chris and Brian probably are, what kind of put it over the top? Is it the way the story was told, the actors in it, or the music, or the sets? What really did it?
All of the above. I was going to say the set design was really brilliant with sort of the mixture of use of screens and actual sets. The costumes were really well done. The transformation of the beast was really incredibly done. The puppetry for the inanimate objects that all, talk, like for Lumiere and Cogsworth and Mrs. Potts and Chip, and so it's all done with like puppetry. It was really amazing. And the the performers were incredible. I was actually really surprised. I mean, not to say that the performers I've seen in other productions have not been good, but these performers were, like I said, of the caliber of Broadway stars. And so all in all, was a really wonderful production.
Need I remind everybody that the one and only Jennifer Hudson got her start on Disney Cruise Line. And that means that there are going to be very talented singers every so often that are nestled in the cast of these shows.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's usually one or two like Broadway caliber people in the shows. I would say this cast seemed to be like all of them. I mean,
we could do a whole show just on what future like entertainment we want to see on the new ships, but like sometimes when I'm in like a daydreamy mood, I think of all the different properties or IPs that Disney has that I want to see them turn into musicals on the ships, because it's like my favorite thing to imagine, because I feel like there's a lot bigger of a risk to turn an IP into a Broadway musical, right? Because you have to sell those tickets.
Yes.
But on a ship, you can take bigger risks because it's not about selling tickets. It's about, you have a captive audience. So like, I'm like, can we get like some obscure deep dives into Disney history? Can we get some like really interesting stuff? I feel like what they did at Animal Kingdom with Finding Nemo the musical. I want to see stuff where it's like things that you'd kind of be surprised they're turning into a musical, and then see them turn it into a musical.
Yeah, that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Maybe The Parent Trap or something, the musical.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Although, be careful what you wish for, because Toy Story the musical is famously one of the like worst of the musicals on Disney ships. So bad that they like shut that down at some point. So, it's not like they have 100% record hits on their hand, but it's good to see that the creative team is doing something great with Beauty and the Beast.
I actually saw that one. That was on the Wonder the first time we sailed on her.
Really?
And what did you think, Steve? Was it as bad as people say?
I guess it's kind of like that. How do you describe the food sometimes? It's like
wedding food.
Wedding food.
Is it like when the wedding party plans an elaborate song and dance number mid-wedding?
Toy Story themed.
That's my wedding analogy is going to really bring us home.
I love the wedding analogy.
I don't remember it being that great, to be completely honest, but I don't. I'm not as how do I say it?
Hard to please?
Yeah, I'm not as hard to please, and I'm not as schooled in the theater as it sounds like you and Sam are. So, anything else about the Dream then before we talk about the Riviera, guys?
No, yeah.
How was that How was having that day at sea though? That was good, wasn't it? Instead of getting
it was awesome.
Castaway Cay.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
In my mind, it's like the perfect. If you're gonna have to go on a 3 or 4 day. 4 day, I guess, having that day at sea right after Castaway Cay is pretty nice. So, let's turn to the Riviera. Chris and I had a chance to go over and meet for this first time for drinks there, but you guys are DVC members. What were your thoughts?
We loved it. We went from the cruise to the Riviera, and so first experience was you get into the lobby and they don't have check-in desks. They just have sort of cast members kind of wandering the lobby with tablets, and if you wander in and look at All Lost, they sort of come up to you and sort of you, how can we help you today? And they kind of park you on a couch if you need to check in. We had already done the online check-in, so we were just kind of dropping luggage and heading to the parks. But they were super helpful with, getting us to our room. We had
telling us where the food places were.
Telling us the food places where we needed make some changes, some dining reservations, and so they could do everything kind of. One person could do everything, and that was really nice. The resort itself, as I say hotel, but the resort itself is just stunningly beautiful. The artwork is just, I could spend kind of an afternoon wandering the halls looking at the artwork. They've got some really neat stuff, pictures from Walt's time over in Europe. They had a whole row of movie posters that were Disney films, but they were like the Italian or the French versions of the movie posters. They had music playing throughout the resort that was like famous songs from the movies, but in Italian or French.
In our hallway where our room was, they had some paintings that were one was from Peter Pan, or one was Rapunzel. They just had some really cool artwork.
That was the only place where I was like, that's the cool artwork, but it has nothing to do with Europe. So I did not fully understand. The theming had started to fall apart at that point a little bit, but the artwork is really beautiful. The hotel is beautiful. The room, we stayed in a 1-bedroom villa. And
it was gorgeous.
It was gorgeous. Our son was like, I like this better than our house. And I was
He also said that we asked him what he liked better, the cruise or being at Disney World or being at the Riviera. And he basically said that the best thing would be if we had our room at the Riviera, but on the cruise.
Yeah. So that's called the Royal Disney Suite or whatever it's called. The room was gorgeous. The Murphy beds worked flawlessly for us. I thought the bathroom was stunning. They had this huge standalone jetted tub, and they had a rain shower, and it was a nice resort.
Yeah, the details were done impeccably well.
And so the room was beautiful. We got to
Where's the Murphy bed at? Is that in the bedroom itself, or is that out?
So the couch actually, the whole wall with the artwork comes down. And the arms of the couch stay in place, but the rest of the couch folds down with the wall.
Gotcha.
And turns into a Murphy bed. And there's these cubbies tucked into the wall, so you can you have a nightstand in there.
And I think that one was a queen size bed. And then there was also a sideways Murphy twin bed that was just below the television in the living room.
Yeah, kind of like the ones they have at the Grand Cal.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Almost exactly the same as the ones at the Grand Cal. And that one is not a piece of furniture before when it's closed. It is just
but the rooms were
hidden bed.
The room we were in was ginormous, and the only thing I can compare it to is the 1-bedrooms at Bay Lake Tower that everyone raves about. It was like that.
I feel like the kitchen area was bigger though, because it had a bigger eat-in kitchen area.
Yes and no. The ones at Bay Lake Tower, they also had that eat-in area, but they had an island in the kitchen too. So
that's right.
So the room was probably actually a little the room was as big as Bay Lake Tower. I think the space was just apportioned differently. We got a chance to use the pool. Look, it's no pool at the Yacht and Beach Club. Let's just be clear about that. But it was a nice pool.
And a really nice splash pad area for younger kids.
Yeah, and the water slide was actually pretty good. I mean, it wasn't like some tame kind of water slide. It was a fun water slide. The only complaint I had about the pool is that the water slide ends in a 4-foot pool. So if you're an adult going down the water slide,
oh no.
You're hitting bottom when you get out the other end of that water slide. So it was fine. I did it a couple of times. It was fine, but I was like, you're definitely going to hit bottom. The whole pool doesn't get more than nothing over 5 feet. So our son could actually had a 0 entry kind of ledge into it. So it was a fun pool, and they had a kid's splash pad area. And then they had another not an adult pool, but it was another kind of more regular pool that was secluded. That I walked through that was really nice. And they had some cabana areas in both pools. Not that you had to reserve or anything, that just sort of, seating. I've heard some people complain about you can see Caribbean Beach.
And you can see Caribbean Beach.
You can. I think the plus for that is that they have a complete walking path around the lake connecting the two hotels. And it's a little over a mile walking path. So one, I think it's great to have access to that moderate resort and its amenities in addition to the Riviera. 2, as a runner, I struggle to find places when I'm like not at a Run Disney event to just do like a morning run, and to have that like mile something loop around the resorts is just going to be a great place to do that. And then I think the biggest benefit that one of the biggest benefits that we loved was the Skyliner. And we were staying in a building and a floor on the other side of the resort. And I would say it took us no more than like 5 minutes to walk from our room to the Skyliner. And then it took us no more than, 8 to 10 minutes to get to the back gate of Epcot, maybe 10 or 12 minutes to get to Hollywood Studios. So for me, it's as convenient, if not more convenient, because there's like no line or waiting for a lot of it, than the monorail. So we loved the Skyliner. We also got to eat at Topolino's Terrace. We had dinner at Topolino's Terrace. It has a great view of the Hollywood Studio fireworks. You're not, kind of like, what's the restaurant on the Contemporary?
California Grill.
California Grill.
Yeah.
So they have a great view of the Hollywood Studio fireworks, kind of like California Grill does of the Magic Kingdom. Not quite as close, but comparable. You're not going to see anything out of Epcot from Topolino's. The food and the service and the atmosphere at Topolino's was just
excellent.
It is as good, if not better, than I keep forgetting California Grill. It was amazing.
We keep comparing the two because one, those are two places we've stayed at, but also because they really are kind of similar in their amenities and in their access to parks. Of course, it's different because Bay Lake Towers, you're on the monorail, so you've got Magic Kingdom, but with Riviera, you're on the Skyliner, so you've got Epcot being the closest, and then Hollywood Studios only a little bit further.
Yeah. So anyway, we had great experience at the restaurant. We've heard really good things about the character breakfast. We were supposed to do it, and we decided at the last minute to
spend more time in the park.
So we didn't do it. We loved it. We loved the whole thing. We can't wait to go back. I'm kind of bummed. I've got a couple of trips coming up to Disney World, and the resort's popularity appears to have gotten out, or quality appears to have gotten out, because it's actually difficult to book DVC rooms there right now. So
I love the fact that they've got the music. When we went through the Med on the Magic, as you went through the different countries, through Italy and France, they changed the music around like that. So it really gives you that theming as you're kind of walking around the resort there. I love that aspect. And did you guys hear about the boat racing that they have at the pool in the morning beforehand?
No.
So they have, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but I guess in the mornings they have like these like little electric boats that you can race around in the pool, that kids and adults and whatnot. So they had that out several mornings, I guess. I don't know, but you guys didn't see that.
I'll have to check that out with Nathan. He'd love that.
We played bocce ball on the bocce court, which was kind of fun. There were lots of people out there playing that, and there's also kind of a bar off the pool that looked really fun.
Yeah, really good to get like a lunch if you're spending some time at the pool, and drinks it as well. But it seemed like it was a bar, but also family friendly area.
Yeah,
and it's also got a great mural with the Disney Magic, I believe, on it. I think over there off the coast of whatever, Italy or France.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that. Anyways.
I didn't see that. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, it's like on the back part of the wall, I guess, behind the bar. So it's a great mural. Kind of, once again, it kind of puts you in that whole feeling like you're right over there. And Chris, you rode the Skyliners, you and Seth. What did you think about that?
I mean, Skyliners are game changers in our mind. I know that like there's some like sadly traumatized folks who got stuck on it for like 2 hours and never want to ride it again. But I can tell you, if Disney were to expand the Skyliner and make it like a very common resort offering, one, I know like operationally it's a lot cheaper to build the Skyliner system than to build new monorails. And two, the best thing about the Skyliner is we found ourselves having to ride the Skyliner back to Pop, which Pop Century is as far as Epcot to Pop Century is as far as you could go on it in terms of timing. And it's still only maybe like a 16, 17 minute ride, which is faster than a bus in most cases, at least, depending on where you're going. But the thing about it was honestly that the Skyliner moves, the line moves constantly because they're always getting people on there. So you could go at the literal park close right after Epcot Forever fireworks, get in that line, and the line might look like it's forever long, except it's only like a 15-minute line because it's constantly moving. So unlike with the bus, you're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for a bus to come. So the Skyliner just felt like, and then I'll tell you, if you're not trying to go there at park open or from park close, you can literally walk on the Skyliner most times, like no line, just walk right on. And so we felt like it was so convenient. It allowed us to do things like go home in the middle of the day if we wanted. I say home, go back to our hotel in the middle of the day if we wanted. So I think like if they wanted to expand it to Animal Kingdom and they wanted to expand it to other resorts, please do. It is so convenient and actually kind of fun.
That's what I was just going to say, that one thing I really love about the Skyliner as opposed to a bus is when you're on the Skyliner, you actually feel like you're on another like Disney ride. And you're being transported from point A to point B. When you're on a Disney, bus, you're just on a bus.
Yeah, I desperately want them to put that Skyliner to Animal Kingdom, because I'm like, Animal Kingdom is the only park there's only really one mode of transportation to get there. Well, two. You can, take a car or a lift or whatever, but otherwise it's the bus. And I love the optionality of multiple forms of transportation to and from the parks, and that Skyliner is just so nice.
Don't be afraid of it.
My only complaint about the Skyliner was that it doesn't run, like, it should start earlier.
Agreed, especially with Hollywood Studios.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was my complaint overall, because we did go to Hollywood Studios. Both of us sort of individually went to do Rise of the Resistance while we were there. And my only complaint was, for the kind of money that people are spending to stay on Disney property, to not have a single form of Disney transportation available early enough to get you to the studios in time to get on Rise of the Resistance. I am surprised. To get in a boarding group for Rise of the Resistance. I think I am shocked at I feel like people should be complaining much more loudly.
Yeah. We both had to take a lift. So at the beginning of the trip, we were staying at the Beach Club. And so Brian had to take a lift from the Beach Club to Hollywood Studios. And at the end of the trip, we were staying at Riviera. This is, sort of with the cruise in the middle. So when we're staying at Riviera, I had to take a lift to the Hollywood Studios because we both wanted to get there by 5:30 because they opened the gates at about 6, and then they open the park at 7, and that's when you can log in to get a boarding group for Rise of the Resistance. And if you're not inside the park by 7, you are not getting a boarding group guarantee, to get on that ride.
Yeah, no, that was our experience too. We had to take a lift from Pop Century to Hollywood Studios, though I have heard, which might be, Brian, because of guest complaints, that at least someone who stayed at Pop Century said that buses were starting to run at 6 a.m. this past week. So maybe people have been complaining and trying to get to the park earlier, though you're sort of still running it pretty close to not be on a bus till 6 a.m. if you want to be like through the turnstile by 7.
Yeah, we were told that they were running at about 6:15 because it was 45 minutes before official park open. Because park open is at 7. They said the buses started running about 45 minutes before park open. And minivans, which we take minivans quite a bit to, places that are not so easy to get buses to and from, in part because they have, because they have the car seat and because you're being, taken by a Disney employee. So it's a really great option. Those were not running until 6:30. So neither of those, the bus nor the minivan, were really an option if you wanted to make sure you were in the park before, by 7.
Yeah, well, leaving at 6:15 on the bus, you'd be at the back of the line, wouldn't you? By
exactly.
the time you got there, yeah. So that's
you get to the park at 7, but you wouldn't get in the park,
right? In time to be able to do that. Well, guys, as we kind of finish up here, was there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on today? What an amazing trip! You guys did you touched on so many different parts of the company between Run Disney and then Disney Cruise Line and Walt Disney World itself. But anything else that we missed today?
The only thing I will add that goes all the way back to the beginning of our trip is, if you're going to Disney World and you ever have the opportunity or the wherewithal to do the early morning Magic, the ticketed event that they have that lets you into the park, like about
Magic Kingdom,
the Fantasyland rides, it is so worth it. We rode Seven Dwarf Mine Train 10 times in a row before 9 a.m. and then had breakfast. and headed over to Animal Kingdom. So like you could, and we also rode that same morning. We rode
Peter Pan, and Winnie the Pooh,
and literally no line. I mean, literally, we got off of Seven Dwarfs and started like to walk out of the ride, and they had opened a little gate, and you could just immediately get back in. And so
there were a few other rides open. There was Small World was open, the Carousel was open, and I forget. I think there was one other ride that was open that we just kind of skipped those other ones because we knew we were gonna hit them at other points. And we really were trying to focus on the rides that our son loves, which is really just Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. And I wanted to go on Peter Pan and Winnie the Pooh at least once. Yeah.
So it's I think it's like $90 for an adult and maybe like $60 or $70. It's like $60 or $70 for the kid, and it includes breakfast. But the tip is get to the park when it opens for the ticket, get in, do all your rides, and then what happens is they serve breakfast until 10. The park opens at 9. And so around 9, when they open the park to the rest of the world, you go have breakfast and you've already gotten your rides in for, an hour and 15 minutes. You can knock out 10 trips on Seven Dwarfs and multiple other rides. So it's totally worth the extra money. We had a blast that morning. So
yeah, and just to throw it out there, Seth and I did what's it called after hours party at Animal Kingdom, and similarly, you could ride like Flight of Passage probably 10 times. We did every single ride in the park, and most of them we did twice, all in a 3-hour time period. So you could basically see everything Animal Kingdom has to offer except for Kilimanjaro Safaris in a 3-hour period. So those events are a good tip, though, just so listeners know, they cost actually even a little bit more than a day ticket. So it's like probably in the $130 range, $140 range, depending on which event you're picking. So you sort of have to balance it. But I think if you have a short trip or a limited trip, or you're going mostly to check out the Riviera or something, then it's nice to be able to do a theme park in basically a 3-hour time period and then, head back to your resort or head to a different park to do something different.
Good tip.
Well, I know that you guys have a ton of things scheduled between now and 2021 and probably into 2022 already, huh?
Yeah,
we have one cruise planned in 2022, February, out of New Orleans that we're hoping to be able to take. We may not.
Yeah. And we have we have one more planned for us for later this year, the UK out of Dover cruise for just Brian and I for my 40th birthday. And then Brian and our son Nathan are probably doing a 5-day Halloween on the High Seas out of San Diego without me.
But they'll be with Chris and Seth, so.
Yeah.
Right, but they'll be with Chris and Seth.
Steve, I am going to march to platinum as fast as I possibly can.
Well, yeah, I know you just... Did you make gold on this? Did you make it gold on this one, or was it the last one?
This was our first trip as gold, because we got our gold lanyards this time, yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. It's always good to move up and be able to put that on, wasn't it?
Yes.
What Brian's talking about is that before we started recording, we discovered that we're going on the exact same cruise in October, which means we'll definitely have to meet up and connect while we're there.
For sure.
Well, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate all that you guys do for our podcast, and it's always fun to connect with you guys. So I know that at some point, we ran into you guys down at, well, at least Brian and I ran into each other down at Run Disney. Or Run Marathon. I can't even talk. I'll edit this out, I promise.
Disney Marathon weekend.
Yeah. Ran into each other down at Disney Marathon weekend, and it was a good time there. And I know we're gonna catch up with you guys somewhere along the way too. So, well, thanks so much, and just want to wish you all the best, and just have fun on the next trips that are coming up.
Thanks, you, Steve. You too.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Brian and Sam for the DCL duo coming on and sharing their experiences as they were at Marathon Weekend this past January, and then sailed on the Disney Dream out to Castaway Cay, where they ran the Castaway Cay Challenge out there. Just as Chris said, one of those things that we all have to add to our bucket list. And as a reminder, this weekend is Memorial Day weekend 2020, where we have teamed up with 5 other podcasts and vlog to bring you the Quarantine Key 5K. And one of those podcasts being Brian and Sam over at the DCL duo. Also, Derek and Doug over at Rope Jock Radio, Leslie and Joe on Disney Decipher, Jay and Dennis over at Podcast Stardust, and of course Lake and Katie over at Mouse Gen. Just a fun weekend for all of us to get out and kind of do something together. You can find out more information about the Quarantine Key 5K over at our Facebook page, DCL Podcast. over at Instagram, and we've run several promos prior to this episode coming out where you can go back and listen to it as well. So all of us hope you'll join us in this fun Memorial Day weekend event. If you would like to come on our show, you can reach out to me, Steve, at dclpodcast.com, and we'll get you set up to record your Disney Cruise Line Adventures by Disney or Run Disney adventure. All of our listeners really enjoy that. If you have time, we'd love it if you'd go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. That helps us get our show known a little bit more in the podcast community, also in the Disney and the cruising community as well. And if you'd like to be a supporter of our show, you can find out all the information over at Patreon, patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Well, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we wish you to be well. We'll look for you out there Memorial Day weekend running that Quarantine Key 5K. And when those ships start sailing again, Adventures by Disney starts running and the Run Disney events start going, we'll find you out there along this course on board the ship or on that adventure as well. So be well, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.